Hello, again, greetings. This is a Labor Day special, Experiments in Telling the Truth, number 8. I don't really know what I'm going to call this, but I just want to share this brief video. When you look at yourself, take away the fashion, take away the degree, take away the job title, the company you work for, your family name, perhaps even. Take away the shoes that you wear, the brand, the style, the cost. Some shoes, boy, it costs hundreds of dollars, right? Or maybe you go to Payless and get those. Take all that away. So it's just you. It's just you and your body, the way you look, who you are, your thoughts, your feelings, your life experience. When you take away all those things that, maybe even the car we drive, add to the list at the beginning, those things that maybe make us feel good about ourselves, or like that's acceptable to us. We can accept ourselves where we're at in life, or maybe we're acceptable to those around us. Helps us fit in, and maybe rightly or wrongly. I mean, there's probably dress code, a certain dress code at work or school or that sort of thing, or just to be out in public. But when we take those things away, how desirable do we feel? How desirable do you feel? How acceptable do you feel you are? That's what I wanted to just comment about, because I think we all struggle with this, and in certain times of our lives, certain places, certain social settings, and maybe even on deeper levels. I mean, I've said many times before, I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus. I follow him. I believe in his teachings. There's a maybe even spiritually, like who we are in the sight of God, how we perceive or think God feels about us, or accepts us or doesn't. So I was thinking about Moses, this man who he's revered by like the three major religions of the world, and no doubt there are atheists and agnostics and people of other religions who look at him and perhaps admire him. Much of Western society is based on the commandment, the Mosaic law, that he handed down, that sort of thing. So he's definitely a highly respected figure in history, and I was just looking at this moment, this snapshot of his life. People may be familiar with him from the animated movie about his life, and but this moment where it's an iconic moment. Here he is. He was the child of a Jewish couple who had to give him up in order to save his life, because Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, had ordered all the baby boys to be murdered, newborn babies, and so the parents, spared his life by putting him on this little basket down the river. He was saved, found by a princess. There's a whole setup with his sister and his mom where, he was able to be reunited with his mother, until he was old enough to be handed back to the princess, the daughter of Pharaoh. So he grows up in Egypt. We're not really told everything about what he knew and what he didn't know, but we have these snapshots of his life. So then, he has to flee because he kills somebody. He's starting to recognize, kind of sympathize with the suffering of the Israeli slaves there. I say Israeli. The Israeli is actually the word. I feel like it really connects with today. So the slaves, but anyway, he flees. So he leaves at 40. He runs away from Egypt at 40. And here he is now. He's a shepherd. He marries this Midianite woman. He's got this father-in-law, Midianite priest. Okay, so that's the backstory. 40 years later, so he's been a shepherd for 40 years. That's his career path. And he's like past retirement age from our point of view. He's 80. And he's taking the sheep, and takes them across this desert to this mountain, and boom, there's this bush. That right there's the bush. Imagine this bush just engulfed in flames. But imagine the branches, the leaves, the twigs, all of this bush. None of it's charred. None of it's turning to coal. None of it's turning to embers. It's still fully intact, but it's completely on fire. Okay, and I imagine the heat coming from that. I don't know. Maybe there was heat. Maybe it was a cold fire. So Moses sees this thing from a distance. He's like, okay, he's changing direction to check it out. I would too. And it says there's an angel of the Lord in this bush. Now, angel just means messenger, so, don't get too many ideas. It just simply means a messenger. But yeah, I'm just probably a supernatural being. Who knows exactly? We don't know. But this is the story. And but then God speaks through this messenger and out of this fire, out of this bush. Now, the thing that struck me about this story that I hadn't noticed before is a very famous moment. God says, "Do not approach any closer. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Now, this is a really remarkable snapshot right here. There's something that really stood out to me that I thought was really odd. I probably would have said, "Hey, well, okay, I'm half Japanese. The way I grew up in our home, traditional Japanese home, you don't wear shoes in the house. You take them off, put them at the door there. You don't want to bring dirt into the house." And perhaps that's probably half of what's going on here, but or perhaps I don't want to assume too much. And I'm not trying to make a theological statement about this. I'm really trying to make it very practical and about what I shared at the beginning about being acceptable and being desirable. Personally, each of us, how we feel when we strip away all the things that we take on to be acceptable, to be desirable in the world, to other people, to society, maybe even to ourselves. The thing that was odd to me is I would have said, "Hey, can you take your shoes off?" Not, "Can you take the shoes off of your feet?" It seems like an odd thing to say. Take the shoes off your feet, like bringing attention to the feet of Moses. And, I didn't live 2,000 years ago, but there are people, there are parts of the world where people probably don't live much differently in terms of how they get around. They're wearing sandals, and it's, wilderness, desert, areas of the world. Clean, washing the feet's a big deal, and not just because they've been sitting in shoes and socks, maybe sweating, but like you've been walking everywhere and your feet are dirty, and who knows, maybe you got a cut or all these different things. Sure, people had a lot more calluses, in those days, as no doubt, many parts of the world today. So the thing that struck me is, if we think about the most acceptable, desirable part of the human body, like the feet is probably not the first thing I would think of. It's like, hey, don't put your feet up on the coffee table, okay? Like, we don't generally, we generally like considered the feet not the cleanest part of the body. And so it struck me really interesting that God didn't have a problem with Moses' feet. He just said, take your sandals off. Your feet, I welcome your feet. I want your feet. Like, this ground is special. This is not ordinary ground. This is special ground. I would assume because of the presence of God. But like wherever God is, that perhaps the meaning here, again, I'm not trying to make a theological statement. I'm trying to bring it back to us. Where practically speaking, this really struck me. What does this say about who we are inherently? There are places we go, it's like, hey, take off your hat, show some respect. Going to a funeral, men, take off their hats, perhaps at church, like decades ago, that was a big thing. But at a funeral, you take off your hat. Men would tip their hat to the lady. Like, it just, it's almost like saying, hey, this maybe this isn't worthy of the moment. This Adidas, like, this is not sponsored by Adidas, but like, this is not worthy of the moment. These sandals on my feet are not worthy of the moment, but my feet are. And going to Moses, if his feet were acceptable, what about him was not acceptable? And that just, I just thought that's such a powerful image, powerful example of who we are inherently. And we're talking, this is, if anyone knows anything about the God of the Jews and the God of the, Christianity and God of the Bible, like, God lives in an unapproachable light. He's holy. He's so, his thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. He's divine. There's, there's no evil in God. I mean, it's just, he's light. He's truth in an absolute sense. He's eternal. He's the creator. I mean, so we're not talking about just, are we acceptable to work at some restaurant or, step foot in a movie theater or shake the hand of, of an actor or actress or a singer or something like that. Like, we're talking the God of the Bible. And the God who did miracles that we read about through Jesus' ministry and his life. Through Jesus. So, who raised Jesus from the dead, I believe. And so, boy, if Moses, head to toe, heart and soul, thoughts, if God's like, it's okay, you can stand here, you can come over here, you can come on in, approach me. If Moses was acceptable without all the trappings weren't. Wow. What does that say about us with each other, with another human being? I mean, why would we conclude? I know why, we have reasons, but I think here's a good reason for us to start concluding, if we're not already there, that, hey, inherently, I'm not undesirable. Inherently, I'm not unacceptable. Meaning, if in God's sight, I am desirable and I am acceptable. And look at all the people who came to Jesus. He didn't send anybody away. He challenged a lot of people, but he didn't reject people. Even Judas, who betrayed him. He embraced that friendship. It's incredible. He loved his enemies. Wow, that kind of acceptance, I think that helps me. That helps me, I'm not going to lie, feel a bit better about myself. I wonder if that was Moses' experience. But that's definitely my takeaway. And I don't necessarily suffer from a low self-esteem. I did in my younger days. I wrestle with that a lot. I'm not going to lie, saying I don't ever struggle with it in certain circumstances. But I hope that this encourages you. That's true. That's true. I believe you who are watching this, you're desirable and you're acceptable to God. And for that reason, why not inherently to anybody? Reality is some people don't accept us, don't want to have anything to do with us. And then what does that mean? Does that mean it's because of inherently something about us? It sounds like it's more on them. And who then needs the prayers? Who needs a blessing? Sounds like they could use some help. Hope those thoughts help.